Well, that was a lot more stressful than it probably needed to be because the Golden Knights were way better than the Dallas Stars in that game. And it took all the way until overtime and like a goofy bank shot, Howden bank shot. Wow, that was ended up being a bit of a wild one. And I wish it wasn't because really, when I look back at that game, like that's what you want. That's the game plan. That's the idea. That's what we want to see from the Golden Knights. When the game is going in the right direction, they're getting in at the blue line, they're dumping it in behind them. The forecheck is going. They're making life difficult on Dallas getting the puck out. When the puck does come out, they're having to chip it out. They're having to try to make these plays in the neutral zone. The gaps are good. They're not getting much in. They're having to throw the puck in, and Vegas is getting it out much more consistently than Dallas was. And then when they did inevitably have something of a little bit more of zone time, Vegas was able to keep them to the outsides, top six in front, block shots. Like it had all the makings of what we wanted for a game one. That's how this was supposed to go. That's how I saw this series going. That's why I picked Vegas to win this series in five, was because all of this built up to that's how the games are supposed to go. Now, obviously, there's the goofy hop off the end board, and I'm looking down there. Well, let's get that fixed for next game or whatever. I'm not that worried about that one. It's the other ones that I'm a little bit worried about. You got the two penalties that are both plays where Vegas kind of mismanages the puck in the neutral zone or around the front of the goal and then takes a penalty on the back end of it. There's a mismanaged puck that leads to the Hintz chance. There's a mismanaged puck that led to there was a Suter chance. There was a Sagan chance. There was a Dodonov chance in front. So there was some mismanagement of the puck that I look at and I say, okay, that's what's got to be cleaned up. But for the most part, the majority of the dangerous chances were in front of Dallas's goal. The majority of the time spent in this game was in Dallas's end. I wasn't necessarily sure that was going to happen, but if you told me it was, I was going to be even more confident that the Golden Knights were going to have success. And all the things that make the Golden Knights good, all the different things that make them have this type of game, were at play today. Forecheck was on, neutral zone was good, gaps were good defensively, passing was solid, puck management for the most part was solid. No stupid penalties that are, way away from the puck or way away from the goal or anything of that. I do think the Golden Knights got a little bit fortunate and then got screwed a little bit later. There was the clear Colin Miller got smacked in the face by Barbashev's stick, and then they clearly smacked Carlson in the face. So I guess those may be offset. Theirs happens first. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't really make a difference. Power play, the penalty kill was so unbelievably good. That's something that's kind of going to get lost in translation because it was so long ago. 2 power plays in the first period, and then they didn't take another one the rest of the game. Like, those penalty kills were spectacular after coming off a series where the penalty kill operated at like 60% or something like that, or maybe even worse, to be able to get out there and dominate on this penalty kill. And really the only opportunity they gave up was right off the draw on the first one. And really it wasn't even that dangerous. They had that backdoor play. I thought Hill was there to get across to that one. But for the most part, like, entry denial was spectacular, and entry denial against this Dallas team as a whole. 5-on-5 penalty killing got a little bit dicey in the 6-on-5. It kind of happened fairly quickly, but they weren't very good on that particular one. Miller kind of just skated up and got it in the zone at one point. Like, maybe look at that one. But for the most part, to me, the game's won at the blue lines. The game's won at the offensive blue line. The game's won at the defensive blue line. When Vegas dumped it in, they were consistently getting it back, or at least making it very difficult for Dallas to get the puck out. When they carried it in, they were able to utilize that and have a lot more zone time. One of the things we know about the Pete DeBoer system is they are comfortable flipping the puck out of their own zone and resetting, trying to get their gaps back up. We saw it a lot. Bank up and out. Pass along the walls and out. All of these different things, the Golden Knights did a really good job of making sure that when those were happening, when they're taking these simple exits and these types of plays that should kind of slow down the Golden Knights offense, it actually kind of picked up the pace for Vegas. Because what was happening is they're chipping out, they're flipping it out, they're doing these different things, icing it, and Vegas is coming right back in consistently. And the reason it was so dangerous was a combination of two things. One, The decision making was impeccable, basically all night long. I cannot remember a single time at the blue line. Trying to think, I literally do not have one that pops into my mind at the offensive blue line the entire game where the Golden Knights made the clear wrong decision, had the opportunity to carry it in and dumped it, or had the opportunity to dump it and carried it and got it taken away. It really just did not happen. There were a few decisions coming out of the zone that weren't as good. Like I said, on the penalties, the Smith one that leads to the goal, there's a Theodore moment that's not a good play inside of the offensive blue line. Like there's some things there that maybe were a bit of an issue, but in the offensive zone and what I'm planning on writing about, and I asked Cassidy about, and I asked Whitecloud about, and I asked DeBoer about, and all of these things was how good they were forechecking and forcing the play at the blue line, forcing the issue at the offensive blue line. If they could carry it, they did. If they could dump it, they did. All of it was consistent. It was successful. It was pressuring Dallas all night long. And even when Dallas would have a good shift, there were the occasional good shifts. Their fourth line had a good first two periods, and then Vegas comes back and Bluger scores, and Kolazar has his magical powers after he gets hit in the boot. I still don't understand how that happened. And then he ends up becoming the best player on the ice for a little while there. Amazing. Nonetheless, that happened. Keegan Kolazar, everybody wants him out of the lineup. You were proven wrong today. I've been kind of teetering on that. I've never fully called for it. I definitely am not calling for it now. They did a hell of a job of picking their game up. They were kind of the weak links through the first two periods. To then turn it around in that third period was a great sign. But when Dallas would have these opportunities and get these good chances in the offensive zone where they were able to be a lot more dangerous than what it was looking for the most part of the game, Vegas was quickly able to get it out, get it back in, start the forecheck again, and force them to spend some time in their own end. I saw at one point the clock that they showed, the zone time clock, it was like 9-6 or 10-6 or something like that. Like that against this team is going to stomp them. The Golden Knights will win over and over and over again if they dominate offensive zone possession time. I don't even think they have to win. And that's what makes me so excited about game one here, is that, yeah, you get a Brett Howden game-winning goal in overtime. Maybe we're not getting that all the time, but Brett Howden had a hell of a game. Brett Howden had a mindset of, I'm going to the goal. I'm going to make things happen right in front of the goal, and eventually something kind of happened. I'm not so sure how much skill it takes to make that happen. Kind of just threw it on the goal, and then Ottinger kicked it in, so thank you very much for that. But he was doing the right things to create his own luck, and he ends up getting that. I'm not so sure that you're going to get that puck bouncing right out on the other side to Carlson all the time. I'm not sure it's going to just sit there for Bluger every time. So there were some things that certainly went the Golden Knights' way. And obviously the ridiculous one that they score for their first goal, which really just erased the entirety of the good first period for the Golden Knights. Like, that's devastating and disappointing. So it's not like the Golden Knights were on the wrong side of the hops. It was just your classic game one. It was weird. It was definitely weird. But when the game was being contested, when you're playing the style that you're trying to play, Vegas's style dominated this game. That doesn't mean they dominate on the scoreboard, the chances, whatever. And they all were good in every way on that. But the style of game, if they can do that all the time, they will consistently beat Dallas. What's exciting to me is what happens if they don't. And I'm going to tell you about that right after I tell you that Kondler and Associates CPAs brings you every single Periscope this season, including all the way through the postseason. Hopefully, we've got 7 more winning Periscopes as we go along the way. That would be fantastic. And then we'll maybe do one from a parade. That would be awesome, too. They are at KondlerCPA.com, KONDLERCPA.com. If you have any tax questions, tell them SinBin sent you. They'll hook you up with a free consultation. They are fantastic over there. Huge fans of the site, huge fans of the team. Great folks, great family-owned business. Please, if you have any tax needs, do me a favor and seek them out before anyone else. You will not regret it. So if the game doesn't go like today, and again, if it does, Vegas is going to win more consistently than not. They're going to win the series if we play that style of game. I don't think that's all that hot takey or anything. Like, They had the better chances. They had more zone time. They were the better team at both blue lines. The goaltending was good enough in their own end, and I don't think he was bad at all. Like, not in the least. Their goalie was very good today, and the Golden Knights still win the game. I think that's what happens. If it doesn't, if there's more zone time, which we saw a little bit of at different times, not to the level I thought we were going to in this series, and I think we may as we move forward. But if we do see a little bit more zone time from Dallas, Vegas should have the ability to keep the pucks to the outside, and they did the two things they had to do. I asked this before the game even started today in a Cassidy press conference. How much is the focus going to be on blocking shots from the point? And he said, well, that's certainly a part of what we need to do, but we also have to make decisions properly of, do you want to block it? Do you want to front it? Do you want to tie up their stick? And then mostly, we also need that forward, the winger, pressuring out to the points to kind of speed that play up to not give them as clean a lane. The Golden Knights were terrific on all three accounts today. I think they can get even better with more zone time against, as odd as that sounds. And beyond that, I called this before the series as well. When Dallas has that zone time, when Vegas is doing well, tying up sticks, winning pucks in front, blocking shots, doing all these things that I expect them to be able to do against the DeBoer coached offense, inevitably there's going to be the occasional board battle win against a pinching defenseman or an overextended center or something of that sort, in which Vegas will pop 2-on-1s or 1-on-0s. It's going to happen. Eichel had one. Barbashev had one, right, with Stone, no, Eichel and Barbashev had one. Eichel had his own. Stevenson and Stone had one, and then Kolazar and Bluger had one. That was 4, and the Golden Knights didn't even have that much zone time. I asked this to DeBoer before the series started earlier today. How do you control the rush game against you? And he said, it's puck management for us. And I don't necessarily agree with him on that. I do think that that's how you eliminate some of the easier ones. And that's definitely how Vegas is going to go about eliminating some of theirs, which happened to a degree today. Pretty darn good. But with this style of offense, we've watched it long enough. Eventually, guys are going to creep down the boards to keep plays alive. Guys are going to make attempts to make offensive plays from the point, from the high slot, different areas, and inevitably you will get those chances going back as long as you're consistently doing the right things in the offensive zone, which I believe Vegas is going to not only continue doing as they did somewhat in this game, didn't have to do it as much as I expected, but they will moving forward if they can keep doing that, even if the zone time flips. We talked so much about it last series. Zone time equals wins last series. I don't believe that necessarily this series. Now, I do think if Vegas has the majority of it, they're in a better spot to win. But we know how good Jake Ottinger is. This is a good defensive team. It is very possible that Vegas spends extended amounts of time in the offensive zone and do not score goals. So we can't go completely on it, but it's not quite what it was last series, where last series I was very confident. Vegas has 10 minutes of zone time. That equals 5 goals. That's not necessarily the case. But on the flip side, I think if Dallas has 10 minutes of zone time, while it may equal a goal or two, it's also probably going to lead to odd man rushes the other way, getting the Golden Knights out in transition and eventually flipping the game in big moments where they're able to just make that one play. Today, the Golden Knights finished 0 of them, none of them. And because of that, we end up with a game that goes to overtime. I think that's why this game went to overtime. Yes, we can maybe do a little bit better in the 6-on-5 situation. Yeah, I think that there's an opportunity on some of these exits where they could be a little bit cleaner, but some of that's going to happen. It's going to happen in some cases. The bad bounce, it's going to happen from time to time. And I will talk about the ice. I saw somebody talked about the ice. But for the most part, if the Golden Knights get some of those chances and bury some of those chances like they have for 6 years now, they're going to have the upper hand on this team. If the goalie stops them all, which he did on Eichel's, and I think he did on one of the other ones, maybe it was Bluger's or Kolazar, I can't remember who was the other one. But if that happens, now we've got a little bit closer of a series and we're all of a sudden debating this. But to me, game 1 furthers my belief of what I saw coming in, which is if Vegas controls the blue lines, they're going to dominate the chances, dominate the style of play, dominate the game. And Pete's team is not going to be able to get out from underneath it because they're going to spend a lot of time flipping the puck out, not being able to get out from under it. But even if Dallas has more of the possession, Vegas should be able to defend it, should be able to win some of these net front battles, and should be able to get enough of them out that they eventually get their opportunities going the other way. I feel really, really comfortable with how this series is going to go. Like, coming in, I felt pretty comfortable. Watching game one, I feel even more comfortable. I do think we have to take a little bit into account. Dallas was very sloppy early in this game. They were not very good. They had a hard time passing the puck to each other. They were struggling at making decisions coming out of the zone. They certainly looked like a team that had just played a 7-game series and a team that wasn't necessarily ready for what the Golden Knights were going to bring them. I don't think we're going to get that as it goes on. And I do think it's important to note that after the Golden Knights scored, that's when we saw a lot more of a pushback from Dallas. Now you've got that times 100 going into game two, which is literally like 20 hours from now. Or it's not quite, but it feels like that. And so I think you're going to get a better effort from them. But I think Vegas is prepared and like well schooled and drilled enough to handle it. I feel pretty comfortable with it. And so that's why when this game goes the way it goes, yes, it would have been highly disappointing had that game gone against the Golden Knights. And maybe we're singing a little bit different of a tune, but I think even if they find a way to say they get the exact same goal that Brett Howden got, where they get one real opportunity, bank it in from underneath the goal line, like, if that were to happen, I'd still be sitting here saying, I think they're in really good shape. Yes, they're down one game. Luckily, that's not what happened. So now it's win 3 out of the next 6, and they've got this moving forward, and we're going to the Stanley Cup final. I feel very comfortable with where the Golden Knights are because of how this game played out, understanding that this is actually a possibility. I wasn't sure if we would see a game like this. I thought we'd get a lot more even style of play. I didn't think we'd get a game like this. The fact that we now have this as a possible outcome to how the game is going to go, in addition to the style of play I'm more expecting as the series goes on, and I think Vegas wins in that style of play as well, I feel pretty comfortable. If the only way Vegas isn't going to win a game in this series is if they flat out play like crap. Maybe that happens. I hope not. It would be easier if we just win this thing at 4 and make it easy. But that's kind of how I view it going. That's how I'm looking at it. Somebody asked about the ice. I can't seem to find. Here we go. Anyone asked about the ice conditions? We did not, at least that I heard. It's pretty clear. It is May 19th. We are in a city where it's 100 degrees outside. It's not going to be great. Like, this is playoff hockey. The fact that the league plays all the way into May and then into June, you're going to have troublesome ice conditions. Obviously, the one that banks off the boards, that's not ice conditions, but you're going to have some troublesome ice conditions. I'm not all that concerned about the Golden Knights handling it because they've handled them pretty well over the course of the season. Ice conditions have not really been something that's come up all that often. I can remember maybe one game, and really the game I remember the most was the game under DeBoer against Florida, where the ice conditions came up more. I'm not all that concerned about it. It's going to be bad. There's going to be issues. It's not going to change. It's not going to get that much better. So don't expect it to be too much. I did not see the Cassidy fist bump, but I believe it. This dude wants to win the Stanley Cup. He said it when he first got here. He's fully on board for making that happen. And I mean, I don't know how you can't want it to happen. Like, we all want it to happen anyway. We want the Golden Knights to win. But I literally feel like watching these games, even from the outside looking in, I don't see how you can't want this guy to win the Stanley Cup. Like, he's everything you could ask for in a coach, both on the bench, at practice, in the media, all of it. Just the guy is great. Like, he's been absolutely awesome, and he's done so much for this team. If anybody else has questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat. I'm officially out of things to say that have come to the top of my head. So if anybody else wants to say anything, go ahead and do that. We played the run and gun game and won. Honestly, expect 2-1 type game. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Yeah, like Brandon, I did call in the Discord. I said Brett Howden will score and it won't come off of his stick. I'm taking credit for that. He shot the puck the wrong direction and it went in. I think that's a Brett Howden goal, not off his stick. I'll take that as much as anybody can take that. And that's what I'll take. Yeah, all blue paint goals. Carlson's maybe is not. Both of Carlson's maybe are not, but they're certainly in the middle. Thoughts on how the D time was dispersed today? I'd have to look at how it is. Let's see if I can pull that up real quickly. I know that they're going to have a ton on Heiskanen, so that's not horribly surprising. Let's see. Vegas, 20 minutes for White Cloud, 20 minutes for McNabb, 22 for Pietrangelo. Yeah, so basically the argument is it's lined up exactly almost even 20 minutes across the board. Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing. That's probably going to help them long term. I think that's probably not going to hold up as the course of this series goes on because you're going to see more danger from Dallas as we go on. I think it's going to get a little bit more difficult, and they're going to have more zone time in their own end, more draws in front of their own goal. I think we'll see a little bit more of that. So I don't think it's going to be that evenly dispersed. This game went well from basically start to finish for the Golden Knights. Like that's the style of game was in Vegas's favor most of the night. Most of the draws were neutral zone or offensive zone. They did everything they needed to do to take control of that, and in that you end up having a much easier opportunity to play your guys in a much more dispersed role or dispersed amount than you're maybe used to because the game's going the style you want, and every group is doing the job that they need. What do you guys have to say about playing? What did the guys have to say about playing Pete? They kind of downplayed it a little bit. Not too many guys wanted to talk too much about it. It's not horribly surprising. I think we might hear a little bit more of it as the series goes on and maybe gets to the end where they do start to see the tendencies, understand some of that, and get a little bit more info on that. I don't think that this was a game that like Vegas won because of familiarity or Dallas lost because whatever. I don't think it's any of that in this particular game. Golden Knights were just better. Do I think Ottinger will get better or worse as the series goes on? Historically, he gets better. And historically, he gets actually a lot better. So I think he's going to get better and better and better. And his numbers actually bear that out from being kind of similar to what we've seen today. I don't know if we're going to get a podcast. We're hoping to potentially get one in Sunday night after game 2, but I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen. Eichel's defensive play has been solid again. I thought it was less noticeable in this game, but mainly because the Golden Knights weren't defending nearly as much as I expected them to have to in this series. I think for the most part, Eichel's line was spending a lot of time in the offensive zone, generating great opportunities, doing the things that we want them to do when the game is going in Vegas's direction. When they're spending more time in their own end, that's when we're going to see a little bit more. What are we getting out of Barbashev? What are we getting out of Eichel? Are these guys able to stand up when there's more time in their defensive zone? So we will see as that goes on. My worry is Dallas Forchecking and our lack of clean exits. Yeah, that's fair. There were some issues that the Golden Knights had exiting the zone. I didn't think it was horrendous. I didn't think it was catastrophic in any way, but there were enough opportunities that Dallas was able to kind of turn that around and make something happen. And we end up with a game that I felt Vegas dominated basically from start to finish. I thought they were the better team in all 4 periods. And we end up with an overtime game that's a bank shot off the goalie's ass that ends up in the goal. So in that respect, yeah, that can be a little bit concerning. But again, I don't feel like I have a ton of concerns here after game 1 because if the Golden Knights can play like that, they're going to win. If the game goes the style of play, I think it's going to go more often. They're probably still going to win. We saw Kolazar walking with a ice pack on his shin or foot or something. I don't remember exactly. I was leaving and he was coming in. He appears to be fine. I think his play was clearly fine. He was fantastic once he came back into the game. I don't think I've ever seen somebody that happen, where they get clearly injured and it looked really bad and he limped down the tunnel. Still don't know why they stopped the game at that moment. I think that was fortunate for the Golden Knights as well, but limps down the tunnel and then all of a sudden he turns around, he's the best player on the ice. Like what is that? Like, I guess he needs to block shots and get hurt more often. Sorry, Keegan, but I guess that's what it is. Do you think DeBoer adjusts? I think the one adjustment that we may see out of DeBoer is they're going to have a different routes to get out of the zone. I thought they were very board reliant. They were also very quick reliant. And what I mean by that is when they got back to the puck, they were trying to move it immediately. Get it up, get it out, get it up, get it out. And what was happening is Vegas was winning to that second pass, or the second player, the first pass. So when they were moving it around the boards, they had a guy facing back towards their goal. They didn't have an outlet. They didn't have the option to get it to the next pass to get it to do a little bit more of having their center come a little bit further back and help them in those exits. And that is partially the game tilting a little bit more in the other direction, which it did not today. I think if that starts to happen, maybe they have better exits. But I think they need to start putting in delays. I think they're probably going to need to start looking at flipping straight out quicker, potentially just hitting that long pass and hitting that stretch pass a little bit quicker because Vegas is getting into the zone so darn quickly. I think if that starts to happen, we may see Vegas have to back off a little bit. Today, they did not. Today, they were all over them. And it's a little bit surprising coming off a Seattle series where that's their game. That's the style of play that they needed to play to beat Dallas. They did it 3 times, but Dallas should have been more prepared for it, and they flat out weren't. Their execution was not very good, but I think Vegas is the reason for that. I think Vegas is the reason the execution wasn't very good. So in that respect, that I don't know that all of the adjustments will make a huge difference. I really don't think it will make that much of a difference. It is a little bit. We're talking about suppressing shots. So if you look at some of the numbers, I guess that's maybe a little bit of a sign of concern, a little bit of a spot where we can maybe look at and say, this didn't go as well as maybe it felt like live. And I'm hoping to get a chance to watch this game again when I get home. I'm going to grab my dinner and sit down and watch the game again. And I'm hoping it looks exactly like it did live. When you look at the numbers, the shot total was identical, if I'm not mistaken. Where do we end up with? Yeah, Vegas ends up with 37 against 36. They had the one shot in overtime, and it arguably wasn't even a shot. So the numbers are the same. And when you think about a fact where for basically 10 minutes in the second period, Dallas did not have a single shot. So we end up in a situation where we have Dallas not taking a shot for 10 minutes of the game and still landing on 36 when Vegas had the puck a lot more, also landing on 36. Maybe we need to up the blocks a little bit more. Maybe we need to get in front of them a little bit more. But that's like one little, that's like a numerical thing that I look at and I say, well, that doesn't match what my eyes said this game was. It did not feel like Dallas had 36 shots in this game. So when I watch it back, maybe we'll get a little bit more information on how that ended up being the case. But again, I'll just end on this and tell you that Kondler CPAs sponsor all of these Periscopes, and they are fantastic tax experts. Go to KondlerCPA.com, tell them SinBin sent you. They'll hook you up with a free consultation. But I'll end on this, is that this is not how I thought game 1 was going to go. This is not how I thought most of the games in this series were going to go. Smoke alarm going off in here? I don't know what's going on. We might have a fire alarm. I might have to leave fairly quickly here. But I did not think this game was going to go like this. So the fact that it did go like this, and now we have a new outcome that we can potentially be looking at moving forward. If any game, the rest of the series goes like this, Vegas will win most of the time. Vegas is going to win a majority of the time. And if they end up going in the way that I think they're going to go, a little bit more zone time for Dallas, I think we're going to block shots. We're going to get these opportunities in the 2-on-1s, and the Golden Knights are going to win. I'm sticking with the Golden Knights in 5. Maybe my 8 goals in the 5 games prediction is going to have to go down, but I still don't think so. I'm going to stick with it. No change. Golden Knights are going to win. That's it. This thing's over. Apparently the building is on fire or something. Hopefully that's not the case. I'm out of here. Good night, everybody. Golden Knights are 7 wins away from winning the Stanley Cup. 7. Pretty wild. Unbelievable.